Illinois beats Purdue 43-27. I rewatched the game, and now let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome all to a abbreviated Sunday edition of Locked On Illini. My name is Sonny Verma. I'm your host here at Locked On, where I'm going to give you new content each and every day. Today, I'm going to do a post-game recap. And now a lot of you are going to be like, hey, I watched your post-game recap yesterday. What are you talking about? You're Sonny. You're Locked On Illini. You go live immediately after every football game. So what do you mean post-game recap? This one's going to be a little bit different. My post-game recaps in general, those live post-games are more tailored towards emotions of watching the game. I got a lot of feedback over the years that you guys, as soon as the game is over, have a lot of things that you want to get off your chest, emotions, just stuff that you watched on the screen. You don't necessarily need to be told about the stats here and there. And so that's why that's tailored, and I joke about this constantly on the show as kind of a therapy session, the live post games. But what I do anyway is, as some of my everydayers in here know, I watch all these games at least 3 times. I'll watch the game live, I'll watch the replay of the game, and then I'll watch the all 22. And so this episode today is going to be just talking about what, now that we know the result, just to kind of recap what happened. Because a lot of you maybe didn't get a chance to watch the game yesterday. And maybe you don't have time, you're not a big reader or whatever it is, and you don't have time to listen to a 40-minute podcast or a 1-hour podcast. So I figured, this is a short, condensed, a way for me to come say hello to you guys on a Sunday, and let me know moving forward if you like this sort of concept. Again, Saturdays, immediately after the game, it's going to be the emotional part, and then on Sundays, we'll talk about what actually happened when it comes to numbers and whatnot in the game. So let's talk about the game. It was a 43-27 victory over Purdue, a game that's part rivalry, part redemption, and part statement. The Illini not only kept the Cannon Trophy in Champaign for the second straight year, keep in mind something that they haven't done since 2002, but did it in a strong, efficient fashion. This was as complete of an offensive performance as we've had under Brett Bielema, and I think it came at essentially the exact right time with number 1 Ohio State looming the following week. This was a game that Illinois had to take seriously to win. I talked about it last week, about the label of trap game, that whole narrative being thrown around, and that maybe Illinois and the coaching staff and the players would be looking ahead to Ohio State. Well, folks, they didn't. They came out focused. I'm not going to necessarily say disciplined, but certainly explosive. After a quiet first quarter, the Illini exploded for 27 points in the second quarter. One of the most dominant single quarters that we've seen in the Bielema era. Illinois finished with 507 total yards compared to Purdue's 453. And yeah, that number's higher than we would like it to be. But Illinois did it by leaning on rhythm, tempo, and balance. 390 yards through the air, 134 on the ground. And for the second week in a row, they took control of a game's physicality. Let's start with the man of the hour, Luke Altmyer. This was, without question, his best game as an Illinois quarterback. He went 19 for 22 passing, 86% completion rate for 390 yards and a touchdown. You're talking about efficiency on the road in a rivalry environment. And that's why Luke needs to be considered one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. But the thing is, watching this game over again, what stood out wasn't accuracy, but more so poise. He spread the ball around early. He used play action effectively and took advantage of the mismatches downfield. The 62-yard strike to Hank Beatty was picture perfect. Deep ball, touch, anticipation. Altmire looked completely in control of Lunny's offense, and the timing between quarterback and receiver has become one of Illinois' most consistent weapons. Coach Bielema himself said after the game that Altmyer is playing as well as any quarterback I have ever coached, which is a massive statement coming from a guy who's had Russell Wilson and Brandon Allen. Hank Beatty's breakout himself was also just as important. 5 catches, 186 yards, and a touchdown. That's over 37 yards per catch. We know he can be a possession slot receiver, but now he's turning himself also into a legitimate downfield threat who can flip momentum in just a single play. That 62-yard touchdown after JoJo Hayden forced a fumble, which completely changed the game's energy, Illinois went from a tight battle to full control by halftime. And what I love the most was Beatty's production came in big moments. He's quickly established himself as Altmire's go-to target in high-pressure situations. And we shouldn't overlook the ground game either. Khalil Valentine went for, I think it was 95 yards and a touchdown. Caden Fagan had 2 touchdowns by himself, and the offensive line, at least in the pass protection, continues its resurgence from the USC game. When it comes to rushing, ultimately the numbers don't look, let's phrase it this way, the numbers look better than the eye test might have. Illinois averaged 4.9 yards per carry. They ran in short yardage, and more importantly, they dictated tempo. Remember, this offensive line has been under heavy criticism just 3 weeks ago. And now, for the most part, they've stacked back-to-back, I'm not going to say dominant, but maybe decent performances. And at this point, that's considered development. And when this team is running with authority, the play-action game just opens everything up. And that's when Barry Lunny's system, quite honestly, is at its best. The inside zone runs looked a little crisp. The pulling guard hit their marks, and Altmyer, for the most part, wasn't touched most of the game. And then there's my hero, David Olano, fellow Napervillian. What a performance. 5 for 5 on field goals. He tied a school record, plus 4 extra points. We got 19 points just from our kicker alone. And again, it's not just about accuracy with David Olano, although he's very, very accurate. More importantly, it's about reliability. Twice, Illinois drives stalled in the red zone. And David made sure that those were still productive possessions. In close games later this season, having that confidence in your kicker is going to be massive. Defensively, all wasn't great, sure. Illinois gave up 453 yards, 302 through the air, and 151 on the ground. But the key here was situational football. They made stops when they needed to, in particular the last 2 drives of the game. And the JoJo Hayden forced fumble, which I mentioned earlier, completely swung the momentum of this football game. Last year, it was Ryan Brown who had a miraculous game and almost led a Purdue comeback against the Illini. And on Saturday, he had another pretty decent game, throwing for 302 yards, and he ran for a touchdown as well. But Illinois did make him earn every single one of those yards. Purdue went 7 for 17 on third down, which is a marked improvement for an Illinois defense that has been struggling in that category as of late. The tackling still needs work. In particular, next week when Ohio State comes to town, Ohio State can, with their eyes closed, drop 40, 50 on you if that's the way you're going to continue to tackle. And as I mentioned in the live postgame, it's frustrating because Aaron Henry has brought this up himself. He understands this is an area of improvement, and yet improvement hasn't happened. So now what? Speaking of the secondary, I did notice they rotated the secondary. With Xavier Scott out, Brett Bielema and Aaron Henry trusted guys like Sabur Kareem and Jaheim Clark, to play a lot of reps. And you can see that their production was starting to show on the field. Coverage, no one's going to say was perfect. Again, we just continue to allow dink and dunk passes, 5-7 yards at a time. And again, it's frustrating because a lot of people in the Talk Illini Discord, they talked about how the defensive line wasn't getting any pressure. But, my response is rewatching this game, they never had time to get pressure. Ryan Brown, for the most part, was able to go to his first read, again, get a nice 5 to 8 yard completion every single time, not giving guys like Gabe Yakis time to get to him. Again, that's just something that needs to be fixed. I understand some of the reasoning behind it. You wanted Ryan Brown to be a quarterback and make quarterback decisions because he might be worse in those type of situations. I think he is. He works best in chaos. But still, something needs to be fixed because Ryan Brown is certainly no Julian Sayin. And those Ohio State wide receivers that are coming to town next week, well, Big Noon is also returning to Champaign next week. And there's a lot that could be riding on that game. We know the defense bends, but we need to hope that it continues to find a way to not ultimately break. And when the offense is rolling like this, maybe that could be the winning formula. Maybe that is what the coaching staff has as our winning formula. Let's not underestimate how big this whole win was historically. Illinois hasn't beaten Purdue in consecutive years since 2001 and 2002. That's over 2 decades of frustration flipped on its head. Brett Bielema is now 2-3 against the Boilermakers, and this feels hopefully like it could be a turning point in the rivalry. Illinois has found a way to dominate this matchup physically, and doing it on the road makes it even more meaningful. Hopefully, you can feel that the program is at a point where it feels like it's maturing. They didn't overlook Purdue when everyone else feared that they might. They played down to the moment, and ultimately, when it mattered, they executed. Overall, this puts Illinois at 5-1, 2-1 in the Big Ten Conference, and still very much in the contention in the conference standings. The offense has been fantastic and found balance. Altmyer is playing confident, and the locker room has responded to adversity, when, especially after that Indiana setback. Now, though, the challenge ramps up. Ohio State is next. The Buckeyes are the measuring stick, and while it'll be a huge test, hopefully Illinois goes into that matchup believing that they can compete. Coach Bielema said it himself during the postgame. This is a group that's learning how to win on the road and handle success, and you can see it. They're starting to expect to win these games. To sum it up, Illinois 43, Purdue 27. Not exactly a complete performance on the road, but certainly good enough, highlighted by Luke Altmyer's career day, Hank Beatty's explosive plays, and a relentless offensive attack. And a perfect day by David Olano. Illinois gets to keep the cannon, improves to 5-1, and now Ohio State travels to Champaign, and we'll see what happens. You know, that's all you can kind of ask for 6 weeks into the season. As you all know, I'll have more breakdowns throughout the week, but for now, enjoy this one, Illini fans. The cannon stays orange and blue.